So today's conversation feels like a really important one to have. Um, we're starting to play with some of the aspects of what starts to look different in a world of um, the eternal aspect of leadership and where we're taking our initiatives. And one of the things that feels really important to just narrow in on is this difference between competition and collaboration, and it feels like a pretty handy conversation to be having. And I suppose the thing that jumps out for me with it is immediately not bagging competition, not actually saying, like, as all competition's bad, because we've both experienced competitive environments, and
Yeah.
there's a point that the competitive aspect actually overtakes the intent or the value system or the principles of what you're doing. And I suppose that's the point that we want to get to is that there's a balance in there. There's some really healthy um, competitive environments, but as soon as the competition starts to get to that point of, well, the winning aspect becomes more important
Mm.
than the values, the principles, the culture. And so
Yeah.
to win, I will happily crush, maybe one of my colleagues who I'm competing with because we're both trying to get to the top of a leaderboard.
Yeah.
When I get and I'm not going to mention company names, but certainly in the corporate world, there was one company in particular that I didn't work for, but I was dealing with their sales reps, and it was like they were really openly competitive, and they were openly going to say, yeah, listen, my job is to crush my team, my almost like my teammate. My job's to crush them because I've got to win and they've got to lose. It's the only way it can work. And it's that sort of mindset that you can see very well as that will go, well, to win, I'll crush my teammate. To win, I'll get as much of the elements out of the planet as I possibly can, as quickly as I can, without a care for the planet. I'm going to destroy forests
Yeah.
because I can pull resources out of the ground quicker, and that and the sort of biological impact, and of course then I can wipe animals out because they're in the way of my freeway. All of these sorts of things when the competitive edge gets to that point that it's crushing to win, that's got to be a sign that we've gone way too far. And it probably links back into the conversation that we had last time about about some of the why of the eternal aspects that we're talking about, and some of the things I shared there about the premise of our economic system of self-interest. Well,
Mm.
this is an example of where you can see, like, self-interest can really go way too far when I'm so interested in my own success above everybody else and above everything else. It seems rather self-evident that that's the point that it's gone too far. However, there's far too many examples of it on the planet today for me to be comfortable sitting here and actually saying it is self-evident.
Yeah.
Because if it was self-evident, then maybe we'd all be doing something different. So yeah, I think it's probably important to bounce that and actually go, yeah, what, competition in itself is not a bad thing, but if we allow the competition thing to be more than it needs to, then it actually becomes really destructive.
Yeah. It's such an interesting dynamic, isn't it? Like you've got a project or a organization or whatever, and they've
Yeah,
got, hopefully they've got some sort of ethical alignment towards heading towards something. But when they become so insular and competitive, with other organisations or other projects
Yeah.
or other governments even, or even internally, like that they've completely forgotten what that alignment is and have
Yeah.
started to, work more in this lateral space against each other and even, against themselves in so many ways. They just completely lose sight of that alignment of what their real purpose is all about. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
And that starts to give us a feel of then where that actually morphs into collaboration
Mm.
and the collaborative mindset, because that collaborative mindset is one that actually goes, you know what, I actually don't have all the answers. I don't have everything I need within myself or within my team or within my initiative or whatever it is. And the way that we can solve some of these really big, meaty, juicy, planet type problems is to collaborate, which means we come together and we solve problems and we take, we find new ways of delivering value by actually bouncing things off each other. And in there it means, well, we're also not attached to what we come with. We bring something in and we're not attached to that existing in the way that I've just shared it. Maybe it goes in, it gets melded around and it comes out as something different. And it may be the thing that actually starts the conversation and we go around to different things and you come out with something different. So collaboration in itself is actually saying, yeah, and I can't be attached to anything like that, which also then, starts to go, well, as a participant in a collaborative type model, I need a really healthy self-esteem. I need, using modern day language, I need some really cool emotional intelligence. All of these sorts of things. I need all of this. And so that's, that starts to really look at how we collaborate. And this is the other thing that comes with collaboration. It doesn't actually mean that we just collaborate with everybody. It's one of these, it's almost like it's the development of a relationship first.
Mm.
We've got to have a shared reality. We've got to have shared values. We've got to have like a similar outlook. And so that needs to be in place first. And if we're coming together with, like-minded ones, is a term we'll often use, it's like-minded ones that have got a similar perspective on where we're heading and what we're doing and what we prioritize. That becomes the foundation then for a great collaborative environment. You're not going to have wonderful collaborative outcomes if you're trying to collaborate with someone who is on kill at all cost, win at all cost. It's that sort of thing. You're going to, once you get that value clash, it's a bit like, well, that's actually not the environment in which we're going to collaborate. So it actually suggests, there's a lot of things that we need to do. And, one of the things that we talk about a lot is like, the leader being the first to transform.
Yeah.
And so this is an example of that. So first of all, if you're going to lead in this eternal discussion and actually have a different outlook, well, there's a whole heap of transformation that has to happen with us as leaders. And so we need to be able to, do some work on our self-esteem, to actually look for those areas that we've got some gaps that might trip up, or, might get tugged with the wrong comment or the wrong, just the wrong approach that might drag that up. So we've got lots of work that we can do with our own self-esteem, and then use that as a foundation to then engage in a collaborative environment. And I suppose from experience, I've seen it's one thing to like espouse the intent of wanting to collaborate, but when you pull collaboration apart, you actually start to go, it's actually quite quite challenging. It can be quite difficult, and difficult from a perspective that it really does require everybody to put their stuff aside and actually come together and go, well, actually, we've all got a focus that we're heading to, and that's where our focus needs to be. So if it means I need to release a position, or I need to let go of ideas, or I need to let go of understanding, so that we can come together and take something that is a step further in evolution, then that's what I have to do. And that's that's an important part of it.
Yeah, and critically, to support that process, at least in my experience, it's all it brings it all back to alignment. Those that start to collaborate with one another, if they're all in agreement with what they're aligned to, it just helps people to, okay, this is what we're working towards, and this is what we're doing. Anything that comes up within me that challenges that alignment, or that challenges that agreement, well, I'm going to just leave that at the door, because that's not helpful. I'll leave that at the door. So when we come together, what we're working towards is everything in alignment with one another, and that just really helps that process so much. So greatly.
It's really one of those areas that certainly from my experience with collaboration, and I suppose this is the thing, collaboration no different to the type of leadership approach that we're espousing, and the focus and the values. This is like not a light touch leadership approach. This is, if it's a bit like if you're someone that is not so much into the interaction or your personal transformation, or willing to invest time and energy developing culture, values, behaviors, and all of that. If that's the sort of stuff that if that doesn't set you alight, it's going to be difficult to actually participate and actually have a positive experience in here. So it's one of those things that the collaborative model is actually quite, I don't want to say labor intensive, but it requires you to bring all of yourself to it. And as we bring all of ourselves to it, it means all of ourselves in an aspect of transformation, but also then by bringing that, we can then, bring our teams and whoever that we're leading along that charge with us. And so the collaboration can actually be collaboration within an initiative or within your team. It could be collaborating between teams. It could be collaborating between businesses. I mean, goodness me, it could almost also be collaboration between countries. Imagine what that might look like. Listen, I know I've lost the plot now. I was going so well then, and it was all sounding so reasonable, and I just went right. But that's the thing is that it feels like to be one of like the core challenges of when we are focused more on an eternal aspect that actually says, we're going to go about the way we deliver initiatives or the way we deliver projects on the planet with a full understanding and appreciation of the planet and how we need to care and nurture for it, with a full understanding of the minerals that are in the planet and how we need to care and nurture them, and care and nurture all of the plants on the planet and all of the animals and all of the other humans. And so when we're actually going, well, okay, so this is what we're looking at and the way that we're doing it, well, it actually begs for something very different. And it is going to challenge us to go, oh, yeah, actually, if I'm going to do all of that, then in and of itself, it actually says I have a different focus. I have a different focus. We're going to, we stay focused on revenue and profit, but more from a perspective of sustainability, not the actual goal, and competition, because it can be really healthy then to actually allow ones to achieve different experiences on merit. And yeah, somebody is going to be in some instances more capable of delivering a particular role or a function or an outcome than somebody else. And so, yeah, okay, maybe they get to do that where somebody else doesn't because they're the best person for it. But you can see in there, it's there's the merit-based aspect to it. It's not so much from an out and out competitive. It's not that I'm actually being allowed to actually have that particular experience because I scraped and cheated and belted and whatever my way to the top of the list.
Yeah.
That's just it's just out of alignment with the values. And so when we move into that collaborative environment, it's exciting, it's unknown, it's that's the thing. You go into that not knowing what the solution is, not knowing what the outcome is going to be, but knowing that you've formed, for want of a better term, a coalition of like minds and like hearts to actually go, oh, we've got all of this energy at our disposal. How can we come together, and how can we all actually head in that direction, and what does the solutions look like, and how do we head there? That's a far more that feels to be a more evolved way of being. And if we allow ourselves to go down that path of evolution, like, I wonder what that starts to look like.
Yeah. Will be certainly different to today.
Yeah.
As an average.
But I say that, and I don't for a minute underestimate the magnitude of the change.
Mm.
It is seriously a big shift. It is a big shift, and one of the challenges as we start to head down that particular path and especially with regards to collaboration is that what do you do when you maybe you don't have the perfect partner, the perfect team, you don't have the full shared values, the full shared experience, the full shared vision. How do you in some instances then lead something that actually says, for a period of time we have enough of a shared reality, we have enough of an affinity, and we have a reasonable level of communication that allows us to collaborate for a certain period of time, but we almost set off on that road knowing very well that that in itself might be temporal. There might come a time where that actually has to come apart because now the value systems are being challenged. But the other side of that particular coin, you don't know that as you start going down that path that what even looks like something that's more apart actually comes further together as you go along. So it's again this whole thing of there's a lot of not being attached to certain things, not attached to perfection and not attached to it being a certain way.
Yeah.
But I suppose the other thing that's in there is also being okay then to actually go, hey, listen, we've been collaborating, and again, this might be people on a team, it might be between businesses. We've been collaborating. It's been great. We've worked. We've got some things done, but it really feels like we're actually we're heading in different directions, and so maybe we need to modify our collaboration model, or actually just agree to go, yeah, all right, listen, all the best. You're down that path, and we're down this path, and we wish you every success, and we'll see you along the way somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, it's one of those great examples of two words that you can put together that actually, when you start to pull it apart a little bit, there's actually quite a lot in it. And a lot that a lot we can do with it. Mm.
Yeah.
What would you throw in the mix?
Well, better have a drink once I start. Can't shut me up. All right. Well, I don't know, like I was pondering on the whole, the whole competitive thing earlier
Yeah.
today, and it's so interesting. Years ago, no doubt you would have heard someone say this along the way, that competition creates innovation. And I understand where they're coming from.
Well, it can. Yeah.
Yeah, but I just disagree. I fundamentally just disagree. I understand where they're coming from, but I just disagree.
Yeah.
It never kind of made that much sense to me. It just felt like as if they come across this lovely little saying and they're just parroting it. But anyway, I feel what creates innovation is someone comes across something that they need to solve, but whether it be a problem or they're trying to work towards something and they don't have the solution for it, and then they receive inspiration, and they work towards that inspiration in creating and grounding and actualizing whatever that inspired thing is, and they create innovation. And with that whole innovation concept of competition creates innovation, people, businesses are trying to create the latest innovation to be able to get one up on the other. And again, I feel that's such and again, I understand why we are where we are with that. I just feel as if we can do much better. I really feel that we can do much better. And let's use an example such as a phone. Everyone's got a phone, and there's this massive big hype and craze about having the latest phone, or what your phone can do or can't do, and there's branding attached to the phone phenomena, and there's all this stuff, all this competition. One's got the better this and the other one's got the better that, and blah blah blah, and they spend an enormous amount of research and development on let's say that you've got two manufacturers. We know there's lots, but let's take two companies as a hypothetical example. They're spending an enormous amount of money on research and development. They're spending an enormous amount on their business operations and the sales and the marketing and the branding and the distribution and everything that makes up that company. And they're just trying to get one above the other, like bang, 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 year on year on year. What a waste. Wouldn't it make more sense for both those companies to actually to work together, to collaborate and go, okay, let's still invest money into R&D, but actually share our technology with one another. So they would reduce their R&D costs, because instead of having lots of R&D themselves, they're going to have less R&D, which is still going to create inspiration and innovation to be able to create and develop new technologies and whatever else for the phone. It will mean that they have less internal people. It will mean that they have less, marketing, less sales, all that. They have less of all this stuff that really doesn't matter. And they're still going to make just as many sales, and they'll end up creating an even better phone because of their collaboration of bringing the best ideas together from all different sides at a lower cost because the overheads are lower. So it means that they can deliver a better product to market at a lower cost to the market, all simply because they change from a competitive strategy to a collaborative strategy. And I get that a lot of people are just, that's going to be a complete, paradigm shift for people and go, oh no, that wouldn't work. But when you sit down and really think it through, so, well, what's stopping that type of example happening? Well, first up, we know that it does happen when one company buys out another company and they merge. So, that's the obvious way that it does work. But if it was just a standard way of operating for products and services on the planet, gosh, I really feel as if we could, make a lot of progress in a healthy way.
Yeah.
Remove the whole competitive nature of trying to squash anyone and just focus on what's actually really important. And, the important things are providing something that's exceptional to your clients and to the world and so forth, as opposed to being focused on squashing anyone and making money.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one, because that's what you're talking about there is, like innovation to foster competition, or is it innovation to foster evolution?
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. And if you did go, well, you know what, it's innovation to foster evolution. So then, maybe we do come together and do R&D together. Maybe we do have these global supply chains, but the whole concept in the global supply chain is to spread the wealth, is to make sure that everybody's got their opportunity to deliver value into the supply chain, and by delivering the value that they're actually getting, that their experiences of humanity is very different, rather than some of the things that you get at the moment, because that's when you'll get, listen, we'll hoard the R&D because we don't want to share it, we want to compete with other ones, and then we'll have these global supply chains, purely because what we've actually said is innovation is the fact that we've found that we can get something made for a fraction of the cost in that country, because of the standard of living is so poor that, and we'll feel good at night because rather than earning 5 cents a day, they're actually earning 7 cents from us. So we're giving them a pay rise.
Yeah.
And so you can see how that ripples out, hey? How it all ripples out. And if you changed the view, maybe it would be very different.
Yeah. And the energetic component of it would completely change as well. Instead of being this real vicious, full-on energetic marketing campaign of trying to be better, it's all about how can we provide exceptional services and products to help you and your life at a lower cost. Like what a completely different energetic feel that, our society and populations of the world would experience from that. And that, of course, as we know, psychologically, that has a huge impact on people's health and well-being.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. The ripple effect is really fascinating with the whole thing of how you can take, like one thing there, like a product, and just see how it ripples out. And in the world it is at the moment is that there is, that whole approach has effectively fostered this hoarding of wealth among a certain few, and leaving huge chunks of humanity really struggling to survive, where it's just not necessary. It's just not necessary. But and probably that's one of the things that, if you said that if we were focused on evolution, then maybe we would collaborate in a manner that actually made sure that whatever wealth came out of it was shared.
Mm.
Yeah, that would just be one of them, and that the benefits of, you know, of some sort of global product didn't benefit this country but destroyed that country, because the raw materials were extracted from that country in such a manner that it's destroyed their drinking water, it's polluted their air, or whatever it is. It's like one part of humanity, again trying to, is crush another part. That's that doesn't feel that would be in alignment with evolution.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. You know, like there's a lot of examples where people have collaborated and done some beautiful work throughout history, and you know, so many of those stories when people share their IP, you know, with the world, you know, they might come up with some sort of patent or design or solution to something, and you know, they share it with the world, and so much of that just goes on to create more innovation and more health and well-being for the world, depending on what people do with it. You know, as an example, you know, you might know who the manufacturer was. I believe it was Volvo that created the seatbelt in the car. Was it Volvo?
Yes.
Yeah. You know, they decided not to patent that and, you know, license that out. They just felt it was important that the whole world have,
Yeah.
you know, all the other manufacturers have the rights to be able to create seatbelts, you know, for all the obvious reasons. And, you know, that's just one small example of people being working in alignment towards some higher ethics, towards the health and well-being of everyone. It's something so small, yet has had a profound effect on the planet, saved countless lives, you know, just a seatbelt, because Volvo decided to do the right thing and share that idea with the rest of the world.
And you know, that's where it's great to be, you know, bouncing this around, because, you know, as we start to, you know, we start to look at how can we help leaders develop in this this way. You know, one of the things that's jumping out at me at the moment is how do we also let go of the judgment that we might have of, you know, like ones that are not doing it that way. It's I think that's a really challenging one for, you know, for all of us, is because, yeah, when you can see something that's happening in a way that doesn't, you know, foster evolution or foster the health and well-being of the planet and everybody that's on it. Yeah, you know, you've got to be able to go and see those situations and be able to look at them and go, well, you know, actually that's not the way that we want to head. We want to do something a bit different, but also not, you know, then not judge, you know, them for doing what they're doing and the way they're doing it. Hopefully influence. Hopefully influence.
Yeah, well, there's a lot there, isn't there?
There really is, yeah.
It'll probably take a critical mass of people, you know, starting to really collaborate, and, you know, if that starts to become the norm, you know, then those that are, you know, if that starts to become the norm, then those that will, you know, hopefully start to follow, and that just becomes the way after a period of time. But, you know, the tricky thing is that humans are involved, and, you know, the competitive mindset can be a reflection of their self-esteem, of how they think and feel about themselves in the world. So that's the tricky part.
Yeah, it's a big one it does come back to some of these core building blocks of the human experience. And I can see at some point we're going to have to do one of these videos just on self-esteem. But
maybe 2 or 3.
yeah, yes, maybe. But yeah, you know, it does come. You know, it really does come to this point of where are we? Where is that self-esteem anchored? Is really things, and unfortunately in the world that we live in at the moment, there's a lot of self-esteem that's actually anchored outside of ourselves. And so we're always looking outside of ourselves, that, you know, am I okay? Am I doing a good job? Am I worthy? Do I belong somewhere? And as it's almost like the evolution aspect asks us to turn that around, and rather than looking outside of ourselves, we start to go, well, actually, it's all in here, and it's all available. And so if you know, how okay am I to just be here and be as I am, with everybody's views, you know, what irrespective of what everybody thinks of me. And that's a really interesting one for you know, that will come along in the leadership journey for anybody that wants to develop down this path of how do you then allow that to develop to a point where you are, you know, really comfortable with your own company. You're actually sound with what you're doing. You're okay to be by yourself, and you don't need to be with anybody else, but yet you still choose to be around and work with others and all of that, because we know that some of the challenges that we've got on the planet at the moment, we all need to come together and solve. So yeah, I think the self-esteem thing starts to become really big, especially when we start to you know, lead in this direction. Because, you know, as you said a minute ago, is that, you know, like most of the planet's the other way. So there's going to be a fair chunk of time where it's going to be a smaller number that are actually heading in this path, and the majority are heading in a different path. And again, it's not to judge the path, but it's actually going, actually, it's not going to get us to where we need to go. We need to get in this way. And so as we do that, hopefully the crowd becomes a bit bigger and starts to influence and starts to assist that process. Yeah.
I feel that within humanity as a whole, and again, I'm really generalizing here, and I know that there's going to be a lot of people that don't fall into this category that I'm about to suggest, is that, you know, generally people love community. You know, once upon a time, our ancestors used to live in a village and in, you know, small towns, and we knew everyone, and, you know, there was much more social interaction happening within the community. And, you know, I feel that that's something that is, you know, within the collective consciousness of humanity. I feel that is one of the things that a lot of people would really love to re-experience, you know, in today, you know, is having so close relationships with lots of different people in different types of ways for their health and well-being. You know, just that connection of being with other like-minded, like-hearted people. I feel that you know, that even within itself really starts to drive collaboration. You know, the spirit of community, people wanting to work together toward common interests, you know. And one of the things that I do see happening in at least the circles that I engage with in the business world are people are talking more about compassion and gratitude and, you know, acceptance and kindness and so forth from a genuine place in the business world. You know, it's not a, you know, 20, 30 years ago, it was kind of a bit of a airy fairy thing, you know. I'm generalizing, but you know, today it's really common practice. You know, some are integrating it much more than others because they get that connection thing. They really get that. You know, we even see a lot of workplaces where you know, they've changed all of the workstations to away or offices, you know, into a type of environment where people can actually connect and spend more time in a collaborative way and allow inspiration and innovation to flow much more naturally. And so I feel that, you know, there's activity happening in this direction. But you know, that's fantastic for those people and organisations that are doing that. But gosh, you know, we really probably need to accelerate that at a national and a international level, with governments really genuinely starting to collaborate. And you know, and there's just so much competition there. You know, there's so much competition there where it just doesn't work. And I know that there are some wonderful partnerships on a global level, and they work where the two agreements of those countries are aligned. You know, not always aligned, not completely aligned, but where there is alignment, that can work wonderful. And there's a bunch of that. But you know, there's a lot of countries that get left behind because they're not part of those little partnerships and agreements and so forth. So, you know, and that's no good for anyone. That's no good for the planet. It's no good for those, you know, first world countries even, you know. So I feel that it would be great for humanity to recognize that we're all human and it's in our best interest to look after each other, whether they're in our backyard or our neighbour or not.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. I just smiling as you were talking about all of that, because it's like there's instances where either peoples or countries or, you know, businesses, there's times when their levels of self-interest align. You know, it's just like, for a moment, what I'm trying to achieve out of this and what you're trying to achieve out of this is actually pretty close. So let's collaborate. But really, the motivation is all about self-interest, and you know, and hopefully that's something that we can evolve. You know, hopefully we can evolve from. But you know, even in a micro capacity on the collaboration front. You know, I spend a fair bit of my time still developing, you know, cybersecurity operations teams, and helping these people come together, and how do they solve the complexities of the issues that are now in front of us, that are just so different the way they used to be. And you know, like 5 to 10 years, 5 years ago, it was still all about, you know, you create a procedure and you go from step 1 to step 2 to step 3 to step 4 to step 5. And this is the way, when you get an incident, you manage it the same way. You keep going that way and that one and that one and that one. And it was like getting to the point that it was so complex and it was so varied that whole standard way just stopped working. And when we develop, especially like the cybersecurity operations teams now, so like in a security operations center, we're actually teaching them about collaboration. We're actually teaching them about critical thinking and all of these sorts of things. So it's a bit like, yeah, listen, you've got all of your technical skills that you've got, but really the way that you people are going to come together and actually solve this big hairy problem is to actually collaborate. And that means you really need to work together, and you need to, you know, play different roles in the team, and you need to know that one person's going to play their role, and you don't even need to think about it. They're going to do it. You don't need to second guess it, and you don't need to try and white at them, or you don't need to try and do their role because you're actually more interested in that. You've got to come together and actually start to look at these sorts of. So, you know, even in a micro, it's been really nice to see that sort of a shift, so that we can have conversations about the values of collaboration and this whole concept of we come together and we solve this really big hairy problem, and then away we go, and we wait for the next one. So it's really nice to see that happening, at least in that little micro point. So hopefully that that will carry on, and we can we can take some of those views and those philosophies into a broader context when we start talking about, well, how do we collaborate on a larger scale?
Yeah.
And still, for me, a lot of it comes down to the self-interest thing. Is that if you're still aligned to the self-interest model, at best, the collaboration that you will do with others will be based on mutual self-interest.
Yeah.
At best.
Yeah.
And I suppose, there's an aspect of that might, for a period of time, help. It might help.
Yeah.
But we need to allow that to evolve. And so certainly, as we do a lot more work on helping leaders find their way in this approach, the whole migration from competition to collaboration becomes a really key foundation.
Yeah.
One could say it's also a principle.
Yeah. 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 Well, on that, what do the collaboration mindset, where someone's coming from to want to genuinely, sincerely collaborate. What do you feel? What are the characteristics within that type of person? Like what are the type of things that someone would have either developed within themselves, or where do you feel that they're coming from to be able to go, yep, collaboration is the way forward and competition doesn't make sense to me anymore? What do you reckon?
Yeah, I reckon that's I reckon it comes back to this aspect. First of all, you've got to be able to really acknowledge the experiences that you've had in the competitive environments, and you've got to acknowledge those aspects to it. But then, it's then going to be going, well, am I really interested in playing a part in being involved in things that are actually more than the here and now? They're actually, they're more longer term. They're more of the eternal aspects. And as you do that, you're going to start looking at going, well, maybe we need to collaborate our way through this. Maybe we need to have, a community focus. Maybe we need to be really focused on our teams. Maybe one of the most important aspects in there is then the culture that we develop. A collaborative culture is really important to it as well. So as you start to look at these sorts of things, and rather than looking at going, well, is collaboration the way to go? It's a matter of, how can I move forward with collaboration? What can I bring to it, and what can I learn about it, and what can I develop? And and those things are in there as well. Yeah, so there's a bit in there.
Yeah, it's an interesting one to ponder on. What I've got to bring to that is, well, really just caring about others.
Yeah.
Like caring, if you've got children, caring about your children, caring about your family, caring about your friends, caring about your community, your city, your nation, the country, the planet. How many people are out there actively working every day within a project or within the business, which are, in a competitive nature, or either that is, ruining the planet, say, for example, or damaging the planet, probably better way to put it.
Yeah.
Damaging the planet, is not just costing the person themselves, but it's costing their children, their family, their friends, their
Yeah.
community, they're costing everyone. And so, moving from that mindset of not even seeing that to moving to a place within themselves where it's, oh wow, gosh, look at what the competitive mindset actually does, not just to the planet itself, but to everyone that's living in it, and what that's doing to my immediate circle, my friends, family, my children, and the future generations that are to come.
Yeah.
When we really care about others, competition mindset is kind of like, why would you do that? Collaboration just makes complete sense when you genuinely care about the health and well-being of everyone, even yourself. It's like, oh well, I want to live on a healthy planet. I want to live in a healthy community. Yeah. Hopefully, with everything that's happening on the planet, with all of the with COVID and with, all of the bushfires and all of the floodings and all of the this and the that and the this and that, all the symptoms of climate change and so forth, people are starting to realize of their contribution, or at least what humanity is doing, which is causing all of these symptoms. And hopefully that starts to steer people in towards the collaborative mindset, to wake them up that, well, the way that we've been doing it is causing so much of these symptoms. There's got to be a better way. How do we do this? Oh, well, we've got to do this together. We've got to do it together.
Yeah. Yeah, I really think that is that's a really important aspect that you bring up there. It's as we align ourselves and going, well, you know what, I'm one member of the human family on this planet, and the planet's telling us that she's not all that well. That, there's other aspects on this planet, like the minerals and the plants and the animals and the rest of us humans. And if we've learned anything along the way, we understand that longevity in living and especially in the human kingdom, longevity comes from all aspects of the planet working in harmony together. And if we're actually taking more of these short-term approaches, it's just not sustainable, and it's not going to work out well. And we're already seeing the effects of that. But also is that even as we start to present these as rather large challenges for us going forward, that there's the great thing about it is that there's so much that each individual can do. It's not like as an individual you're powerless in it. You can choose to start seeing the world as it is, and start seeing our place in it, and how we have to live with everything else in a sustainable way. And if you take that perspective, well, then you're right, you almost start to not even so much choose collaboration, it just happens. And it really starts to happen. And there's some there that that may say that there's it's a bit of the soft, it's not the hard edge, and the soft kumbaya type thing of, oh, there's no competition at all, and it couldn't be further from that. The collaboration approach is not the easy one. It's not an easy solution. It's not something that is just going to land and it's all going to happen and everybody's going to live happily ever after. It actually is it's a statement of intent that is followed by real action. And real action in that each of us start to look at how we see ourselves on the planet and who we see ourselves as, and where we can participate. And to participate, what do we need to do? And we need to do some work on our self-esteem, and we need to work on all our emotional intelligence and all of these sorts of things, and through that we can actually then participate in something that's that's a lot bigger. So yeah, big challenge, but it's also something that's great that each of us as individual expressions can actually have an influence on.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I feel it's possible. I feel it will happen. Maybe I'm being a little bit idealistic. I don't know, but you know, I see the development of seeds, you know, in different pockets. You know, at least in the circles that I engage with. But yeah, it would be great to see that at a more of a macro level, at a governmental level, and you know, not just even within our country, but you know, here in Australia, but you know, around the world. And
yeah,
it'd be great to eliminate a whole bunch of unnecessary things that happen on the planet, such as, you know, such as poverty, such as, you know, people living on the street, and, you know,
yeah, indeed.
you know, things that our planet really should have moved beyond by now. Maybe that's a big judgment on my behalf, but you know,